If they're saying we have sustainable production, just the idea that we need infinite production in order to solve our problems is exactly what we're criticizing. We can't convert the entire world into solar panels and have sustainable energy for the future because the problem is there is no limit to the amount that we are going to consume. This is the living evidence out of the 1AC, the participating, the logic of consumption. There is never enough. We are always consuming in excess. You can extend the Adams analysis that talks about how we have a carrying capacity for the population, and we are going to eventually lead to exhaust the world's natural resources, and it's going to lead to a collapse that is eventually going to lead to extinction. The only way to solve this is to reframe the way that we look at the way that we look at how we consume. This is a sequencing argument. We need to look at alternate forms of life, the one of not just consumption. We're not a homo economicus. We're not trying to increase the amount that we consume. We need to look to a principle of sufficiency. They say that they're looking at sufficiency in the status quo by producing energy, but that's not exactly what the case is doing. It's saying we need to produce more, we need to create more energy. A principle of sufficiency implementation policy would be having a limit to the energy that we need and saying that we should only use this much. They are not doing that. And second, you can extend the permutation fails. You can extend the Princeton analysis, which says that sufficiency will spill over. It's logical and exists in the real world. This is the Princeton 05 analysis that says that it's logical and exists in the real world, but people are not enacting it because we do not embody this restraint. This unlimited amount of consumption is the lack of restraint that we need to use alternate forms of life to reconsider. Also, extend the Princeton, which says that says sustainable development sets aside the root cause of the problem. The whole idea that we can constantly consume but be more efficient and not. We can constantly consume but not be more efficient and consume less is exactly what their case is doing. And they say that the alternative fails because the government is key. But their evidence on that is talking about how we can reform ideologies within the government and how we're looking at like gay rights movements and new forms of ideology. But the problem is that in order to create that new form, we need to do the alternative first because we don't have an ethic of sustainability in the status quo, and we don't have the idea that we can consume less. It's always about consuming more, and that's how the government is oriented, which means we need a fundamental reorientation before we take any sort of policy action. We cannot achieve sustainability until we look to alternate forms of life and reorient ourselves in that way. And you can extend part says that focusing on environmental effects denies human causes, which undermines sustainability. So we first need to reflect on ourselves and look at how we have caused the problem. It says that public discourse is just a denial of what it says that. Discourse within the government is just a denial of taking the blame of the cause we've already that we are already the cause of this problem, which means the permutation, any sort of permutation fails because it doesn't acknowledge our role in this environmental destruction. It doesn't acknowledge the fact that we need to look to the next thing. And they say we don't delineate between good and bad consumption, but that is extremely clear throughout the round. It's that we need to consume to a sufficient amount, but not in excess. We don't need to consume eternally more. We don't need to look at an infinite amount of energy or say that we need to always produce more. We just need to look to a sufficient amount. That's like setting some sort of limit on the amount of energy we have. And they say alternative is too slow. We can start the transition in the market, but again, you can cross-apply the argument that we can't have our policy goal determined before we start to reorient ourselves. We need to make different goals through different forms of life in order to have any sort of change. So even if the alternative is slow, the only way to achieve the alternative is through doing forms of life and reorienting ourselves to an ethic of sustainability in the first place, which is going to happen according to the Princeton evidence. And they say we can't reduce things like consumption of food. That's fine, but we just need to look to a specific amount that we need to consume, not say that we need to internally produce more. They say that the government is the only hope to solve warming, but the alternative would look to an ethic of sufficiency, which would allow us to solve warming in the long term and acknowledge our participation within that, and also look at not destroying the earth in order to increase its carrying capacity. So the idea that we can solve warming by producing more is just falling under this flawed assumption in the logic. They're still linking into this. And also go up to the case solves argument and role playing. This is the first argument I made. So either A, they're right about the case, the immediate action is the only thing that can save the world from the benefits of policymaking, and the long-term benefits of public policy training are inaccessible because nothing can help us without the affirmative. They need to be in a case where the position is, or B, their claims are false about the plan being necessary to prevent extinction, then their own logical learning to articulate arguments, making decisions, and persuading people, then they should lose because they presented a consistently advocated falsity. So this is a reason why the idea that the case solves the case case solves the case doesn't work, because they're talking about imminent destruction, but then they also talk about how we need to have policy making so we can make decisions in the long term. So either one of those impacts, there's a tension there that's not resolvable in favor of the affirmative, because either they aren't going to be able to access the benefits of policy making in the long term because we're all going to die first, or B, can't access the benefits of policy making because we're eternally or they only access the benefits of policy making, which is going to put us into this eternal cycle, and they're not reforming their ideas. So we need to look to an alternate method of looking at. We need to look to an alternate.
Extend Turns case.
Oh, alternate method of that, and you can extend this to Turns case because.
It leads to worse forms.
Because it leads to worse forms of consumption and competition.